Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Do you have a notepad? Do you have a pen handy? If not, grab that right now because I want you to take notes. I want you to make a commitment that you'll jot down some sort of action item that you can implement in your business today. Today we're going to talk about software. Now I've done at least one other video in which I describe the various forms of software that you should operate in your business, and you should check that out. Today I'm going to make things easy for you. I'm going to tell you really what you should just choose for software. So let's just dive right in here and get started. You know that software, some sort of operating system, is necessary for running business today. I can think of scarce few businesses who can operate competitively without multiple pieces of software. And that means that each of you, business owners, entrepreneurs, you in management, those of you aspiring to be in management, will be faced with the challenge at some point of trying to select the right software. And I have a lot of experience in doing just that, in selecting software. I was using cloud-based software literally before it was known as cloud-based. And I've been an early adopter. It's in my personality. I have a real affinity for emerging technologies and everything. So I look at things on the bleeding edge. I do that sort of for fun, just as a hobby. I'm always checking out what's new. It sort of excites me to see the progress that mankind is making in terms of technology. So I've always been interested in that. And because of that, and the other part of my personality is trying to look at things through the context of my personal experience and business experience. And so when I see something that's perhaps out of context in a personal environment, I've alluded to in other videos where other people observed of me that I'm always looking to apply lessons and ideas that I glean from other industries and other experiences in life and try to apply those in the context of business. So anytime I see a technology or some idea that another industry or company is using that looks really interesting to me, I explore that, I look into it. Or I just may hear something that's novel to me. It may be a reference to a term, a technological term, or some sort of actual brand name that I haven't heard of before. I usually stop what I'm doing and I look into that a little bit. I want to understand the context of what was being discussed. I like to do that, but I'm usually a little bit surprised. Oh, I haven't heard of that. I want to check that out and learn a little bit more about it. And if you check out my video on generalist management, I usually only learn a little bit about things. But the point I was making is that I have been involved in evaluating and scrutinizing software for a very long time. And a few years ago, I found myself in a position where I needed to completely revamp and design from the ground up the software package that I would be using for my company. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, of course, I need to employ all the specialized knowledge I have in this arena, and I should look at this as solving a problem for my business, but not only for my business, but for all of my clients, for all of my prospective customers down the road, because each of you has this same challenge. And that's exactly what I'm gonna tell you, how I did that, what I decided upon, and spoiler alert, the package that I came up with was Zoho, 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 depending if you're Canadian or American. Zoho is, bar none, the best value for business software, a complete suite of software. But let me tell you, don't just take my word for that. If you just take my word for it now, you can skip the rest of the video. You can click on the link in the description and that'll take you to place on our website where you can purchase the software. But I want to describe to you how I arrived at that, because you probably have a little more convincing to do. And the idea is, I was in your shoes. I had to scrutinize very closely and looked through a lot of stuff that was out there. Now, there are some big players. Of course, there's very big names out there. You think of Microsoft and Google or Alphabet as some of the big players. And then in terms of accounting, you've got Intuit and QuickBooks. There's some really big names out there that are publishing and producing and releasing software for the use of all size businesses. And I researched a whole bunch of them. So why did I end up going with Zoho? Well, let's look at some principles that we understand in terms of buying. So people buy from those that they know, like, and trust. And you and I are people. So that means that is part of what we do. That is part of our buying nature. We're going to buy from those that we know, like, and trust. So when I was doing my research, ultimately, I was looking at which company do I know best? Which company, as I get to know them, do I want to know more about them? So I was getting to know all of my options out there. And those that I was liking, the more I got to know them, I would spend more time researching them. And those that I trusted to deliver in terms of value, and that they would be there in the long haul to fulfill the needs that my business had and my customers, those were the ones I took the closest look. And I really did this, and I filtered things down to about 3 main competitors. And in fact, I was going in one particular direction, but I didn't hear back from representatives of that company in time. And I was glad it was fortuitous in the end, because that gave me some more time to research Zoho. And I was just delighted with what I saw. So when we talk about know, like, and trust, one of the things that I doubt that many of you actually look at is I look at the leadership of the company. And that was something that was important to me. Now, Zoho's co-founder's name is Sridhar Vembu. And this guy, I watched him speak. I took a look at any keynote speeches that he made. I took a look at company produced material and third-party material. I learned as much as I could about him, and I was impressed. This guy is really impressive, and it's not surprising to me how much success Zoho has had with him at the helm, with him guiding the ship. He's extremely humble. He has a PhD from Princeton, but he'll be the first one to tell you that it's a PhD in electrical engineering. He will dismiss that right away. He'll say that he didn't, really leverage that education at all for his success in business. But he's very bright. That's very obvious. But he's really humble. Here's a guy who has essentially developed his own computer language. He's working on another one. He's, I would say, self-taught. I think he credits a friend of his who was a developer, a coder, that he learned from, and he learned quickly, and he could wrap his head around what was most important in the software industry. Now, Zoho refers to themselves as the operating system for business. And this was the other thing. So when I sort of had this list of criteria based on my personal experience of what I was looking for, I wanted to check off the boxes. And funny enough, I had always referred to the software suite or the package or the integrated software tools that I used in business as an operating system. That is to say, it wasn't literally like Windows is your operating system or iOS is an operating system on your Apple device or something like that. What I was referencing is using a whole bunch of pieces of software in order to operate the business. That was our system, our operating system. And what was frustrating to me is when those pieces didn't cooperate. They didn't play nicely with one another. And so anyway, I created this list of must-haves in terms of what I was looking for. And I'm going to go through some of that with you today, because these are must-haves. They're must-haves for your business. So as we begin with that premise of people buying from those that they know, like, and trust, you'll see that theme repeating. You're going to see as I go through these bullets of what it was that led me in the direction and to the final conclusion to not only purchase subscriptions of Zoho for my business, but to ultimately become an authorized partner and be able to represent their software to my clients you're going to see this recurring theme of my research led me to know, like, and trust them. But another foundational theme that I talk about all the time in these videos, in these discussions, is the importance of value. I mean, that's the bottom line here. We're talking about we're going to part with our hard-earned money. I want unparalleled value. And Zoho unquestionably represents the best value. It's unmatched in the market in terms of an operating system, of a complete suite of package. So that was the other thing. I'm saying two different things there. One is the value, and then the second thing is that it's a complete operating system. It really has a comprehensive list of applications that almost any kind of business will use, not only one or two, but we'll use many of them. And the other side of that coin is you can almost not think of a type of software that you would need that you can't fulfill with the Zoho package. Now, Zoho has all of their software applications are available individually, and you could subscribe to those individually, but they have something called Zoho One. And really, that just makes so much sense. It is essentially inclusive of all of their apps. Zoho One offers all of their software in one subscription price. It's included. So as many of those packages as you want to use, or rather as many of those applications that you want to use, it's all included in one fell swoop, one big subscription, full coverage. And they have options depending on the size of your business, what works best for you. But it makes so much sense. So let's look at it this way. We see so much advertising out there for individual software, and I don't really want to get into naming some of them, but you can think of them. Many of them offer advertise on pre-roll on YouTube and that kind of stuff. And they say, you know, if you need to manage teams, you need this. And if you're managing projects, you need this. And if you're booking appointments, you need that. Or if you want a great website, you need X, Y, or Z. There's all sorts of different software packages that are being advertised out there. Well, Zoho has a competitive product for almost all of those. And I won't tell you that they crush the competition in every single category. They do in most. I would see that there's some really strong competitors out there in one or two things that software offerings, and Zoho is really working hard to, you know, compete and represent better value than each of those. But the point I was trying to make here about the Zoho One subscription is that they price their individual applications very competitively, in most cases less than the competition prices those others that I refuse to name. And therefore, they're already well priced individually, but now when you add them together, the price of a Zoho One subscription is equal to about only 2 or 3 applications, depending on the ones you use. And if you look at that video I have on what you absolutely must have for your business, you're gonna need probably more like 10. And so Zoho One just makes the most sense. And I hope that made sense to you, is that individually priced, it's already a good deal, but when you bundle them into Zoho One, it's a smoking deal. Nobody out there, that's why I can confidently say that nobody matches the value. I would argue that there may be a piece of software here or there that some people are even better at creating, but the value's not there. Because if you have to mix and match, then you create all sorts of problems for your business. So let's get into that. When I talk about this list that I was looking for, the first thing I wanted was something very comprehensive. I wanted a full breadth. I wanted all the different types of software I would need to run my business and my clients would need to run their business, and Zoho offers that. The next thing I wanted to make sure was that it was cutting edge, that the technology was really on point, that they would, you know, nobody's really using server-based software too much anymore. There are some pretty large applications out there that are still selling that kind of stuff, but more and more, increasingly so, the world has become cloud-based. And I guess the next paradigm of computing will be, you know, distributed ledger, blockchain technology, and that'll happen over the coming years. There'll be a progression toward that with all cloud-based software. The key is most of us won't even realize it's happening, because the advantages you get from blockchain and everything, most people will just think they're just using regular cloud-based, because it's still cloud-based. My point is I wanted to make sure that I had cutting edge. And what I found with Zoho is that the features that you want are present. So I gave an example earlier. I'm going to use an example of Microsoft. Microsoft came out with Microsoft Excel. It was the spreadsheet is probably the first killer app ever invented for personal computing, and therefore it's come a long way. Spreadsheets are so powerful. And so I use that as an example. I was recently looking at a couple of YouTube videos by two independent YouTubers who are experts on Microsoft Excel. In both of these, and I watched these on different days, but they're both very recent, they were explaining cutting edge features that were offered by Microsoft Excel. And I thought these were pretty cool features. So I did what I alluded to earlier. I paused the video, I went out and I wanted to search Zoho Sheet, which is their spreadsheet. And in both cases, in the first case, Zoho offered it before Microsoft Excel did. And in the second case, I didn't actually ascertain which one offered it first, but the point was it was available. Both of them were fairly recent additions. And I was really impressed. I thought, okay, well, Excel is thought of as the big powerhouse of spreadsheet software out there. And Zoho is hanging in there. And I can't promise you that Zoho Sheet is more powerful than Microsoft Excel, but I can tell you that almost any of you who are watching will never find a feature in a spreadsheet that you can't get out of Zoho Sheet. It is extremely powerful. And so that was just one example of making sure that whoever I teamed up with, I wanted to make sure they were on the cutting edge. It's frustrating when you hear that there's some other competitive software out there that offers something that what you're using doesn't offer, and you can think of a use case in your business and you're like, or you talk to somebody else in business and they're doing something and you find out, oh, my software doesn't do that. Zoho, I rarely run into that on any of their software. It does everything. They are very in tune to what the cutting edge features are out there of their competition, and they stay ahead of it. In most cases, they're way ahead. CRM is customer relationship management tools I'm extremely experienced with. I've used many throughout the years. I've evaluated, I've trained on these things, and I know a lot about CRM. I can tell you that's where Zoho really found its traction years gone by is CRM. It is extremely powerful. Their CRM tool, as an example, is cutting edge. It's got big features in it, and it's offered at a fraction of the price of that big one that most of you are, let's just say SF as a reference to. That's a big CRM competitor out there. Zoho is so much better value and has so much power. So that was one of the things on my list. The next thing on my list, and this is very common when it comes to cloud-based software, is I wanted something that was continuously updated. I really like the idea, like I was saying before, I'm all about emerging technology. So I wanted something that would impress me, that were feature rich to begin with, but continually adding new features. And Zoho does that. They just keep on. You can barely keep on top because they have so much software, such a complete package. The new features that are continuously coming out are just very, very impressive. The next thing on my list was that it had to be fully integrated. And I don't want to just glaze over this. This may bore you, but I want you to understand the importance of full integration. A lot of businesses, and I was no different with the business I was running, had various different manufacturers of their software. And what we're trying to do, as I alluded to earlier, is make them play nicely, make them communicate with one another. That's what we talk about when we talk about integration. So that's third-party integration, being able to integrate with one another. That also goes to the idea of having a full suite of software by the same manufacturer, because the integration typically, but not always, is built in when that's the case. If you have one manufacturer, one programmer who's developing all of it, they make sure that it cooperates, it integrates with its other components, with the other pieces of software, with its other applications. And it's very frustrating for you and your team when your software is not integrated. So Zoho, because it's so comprehensive, it's fully internally integrated. So all of their different software integrates with one another. Let me give you an example. So let's say you're using WordPress for your website software. So your website's been developed by WordPress or one of the other. WordPress is the biggest one out there. So, and I don't have anything negative to say about it. WordPress is a great company and they have incredible website software. But is your email campaign, your marketing software, or your social media campaign management software fully integrated with your website software? So if you chose WordPress because you're like, oh, they're the biggest and they're the best, then I would ask you, okay, and what are you using for your email marketing? What are you using for automating all the rest of your marketing strategy, your social media management, and so on? And if it doesn't fully integrate with your website, you have a bit of a piece that's broken there. And you might say, okay, well, I've got those three pieces, they're all integrated. Okay, what about your accounting software? What are you using for accounting? And you might, again, QuickBooks, very powerful, very big company that has very robust software. Does it fully integrate with your website and with features and processes that you run through your social media management or website or any other kind of marketing campaign? So all of this stuff is meant to drive your business. So when we talk about these things independent of one another, we think of them as, like silos, and we want to remove the silos. We want all the business operating as one. So there's where the concept of Zoho One comes from, the fully integration. And we can continue to go on. What about your HR management, your human resource management software, your recruitment tools when you are out there acquiring new talent for your team, and then once you onboard them, your training software, all of these types of things, they should integrate with one another. It's very frustrating when they don't. So that was on my list. They had to be fully integrated, and Zoho had that. The next thing on my list was it had to be fully customizable. And when I talk about customization, I mean some minor things to some major things. So let's talk about the spectrum of customization. So there are some little things that you want for customized, but I'm going to tell you, first of all, the opposite of having customized software is when you deal with these big players and their software is out of the box, so robust in features and everything. That's all well and good, and Zoho is like that as well. But can you add more things to it? Can you add a field, for example? I mean, most of these things are simply databases, and then they add on to it with HTML and CSS and other types of coding that makes it very robust and have these great user interfaces. Can you add something like a field that you need? Or are you stuck with the fields that the developers decided? How it works with the big companies is usually the user feedback gets back to the company, and then the developers and the management team of the company decide which of those things they're going to add on for features. And certainly Zoho does that as well, along with all software companies. But I don't want to wait. If I've thought of something, maybe I'm prepared to offer a suggestion, but if it's something minor, like I just need another field here, I can't believe you didn't think to add this field, I want to be able to do that myself. That's a simple idea of customization. Or what about your pick list? So you got a drop-down list, and is it really easy and customizable to add? Are you stuck with what the software came out of the box with? Maybe it has 5 options to choose from in a particular field in the pick list, and you're like, well, there's 2 or 3 other things that I'd like to add to that for more specificity in my business. Can you add that? That's, again, very simple, but that's some basic customization that I insisted on, and Zoho definitely has that. Another form of customization that I wanted was to be able to white label my software. If you've got a website that has the URL, or within the URL of your website is the name of the website company, that's not very good. You want a custom domain that represents your brand. And the same goes for all of your software that represents your brand. So if you have some HR software that people are applying to you, do they have to see that you're using company X, Y, or Z when they are visiting your application tools and this kind of thing? So there's some other really big names. I'm trying to avoid naming the big ones, but maybe it's not important that I avoid this. But as an example for email campaigns. MailChimp is a really big one out there. And again, I don't have anything bad to say to them or about them. Is it fully integrated with all your other tools? And what I was getting at a moment ago is white labeling. You don't want it to be necessarily obvious that MailChimp is what you're using, or when you're using Zoho campaigns, you can white label everything within Zoho. There's just about nothing I can think of that you can't white label, so that if any of your external vendors or customers or other stakeholders were interacting with you, it seems like it's your software. It's all labeled with your custom domain. So if you are abcwidgets.com, every piece of tool you use, when we white label that for you, it will be somewhere in the domain will have to do with ABC widgets. And it doesn't matter what kind of software. So that's another form of customization. The most important part of customization that I insisted upon is, what if I want to build an entire application from scratch? Can I do that? Can I have reports and fields and tables and views and automations and all this stuff from scratch? And Zoho has something known as Zoho Creator, and it allows for that completely. You need to be able to do that. So fully customization, fully customizable, that's what I wanted. Zoho has that in spades. These days, machine learning and artificial intelligence are buzzwords as it relates to software, and there's a lot of controversial topics or thoughts on the matter and discussions that ensue. But I knew that when I talk about something being cutting edge, we had to have some sort of software package that would incorporate AI, that would incorporate some intuitive AI. And Zoho has something called Zia, which is their built-in, their native artificial intelligence. And again, they're at the front. So character recognition, all the various things that machine learning brings to software, intuition to create charts and graphs right out of your spreadsheets without you even having to do it yourself, without you having to do anything. You click on the Zia function and it'll suggest, what about this graph? Does this help you? And that kind of thing. And they, for their writer, which is their word processing software, the artificial intelligence is really good with its grammar and suggestions and that kind of stuff. So they use all sorts of AI in very, seamless ways that you wouldn't really realize it's AI. It just makes the software so much better. As I'm brainstorming these things and rattling off the reasons, I'm getting into some of the things that weren't necessarily on my list, but really impressed me and made it a no-brainer for me in the end. So I mentioned the pricing. I couldn't believe the pricing and how great it was. But one of the reasons for that, I explored that, because sometimes when things are priced too low, it sends up a warning signal for me, like, what am I gonna find out later about this? What I found was Zoho employs a unique method of sourcing and developing homegrown software engineering talent. And they are able to do this in such a way that they don't have to pay a fortune. They grow really an incredible team of engineers in a way that allows them to develop software. It creates a competitive moat that is huge. And that's what I found when it came to pricing, and that really made sense to me. I was like, oh, okay, here's what it's about. You may have never even heard of Zoho. And that takes me to another thing here. I mentioned that you can kind of rely on the recommendation I'm giving you here. But I used to say, you would expect me, because I also sell the software, you would expect me to tell you it's the greatest. What I was saying to you is that I was in your shoes at one time. I had to make a choice, and this is what I made the choice on. But I also put myself in the shoes of others who went before me. And Zoho is trusted by companies all around the world. I mean, they have over 60 million users. There are tens of thousands of companies that rely on them. And we're talking from behemoths like Apple, Facebook, Tesla, Netflix, the real big players, Amazon. These guys are using Zoho, as well as little companies. Like some of our clients are really small. They're operating with 2 and 3 people, and they have very few licenses. And it's really imperative for all of them. Now, some of those big companies I listed are, thought of as being the most technologically savvy companies in the world, but they can't do better. We have that thing where Adam Smith said, never do anything, never make anything that's cheaper to buy elsewhere. And I've got that video, never produce in-house anything that you can outsource for cheaper. Well, that's why companies like Apple and Amazon and Tesla are subscribing to Zoho software, because for them to employ their in-house resources to develop it would cost more than relying on the experts. Zoho does it. So when these companies, these big companies or these small companies, 60 million users, tens and tens of thousands of companies have already done the research that you're considering doing, and they've made the decision. So that was really important to me, and I realized, okay. And then that's the next thing it takes me to is the awards. I wanted to look and see, what I was saying earlier is, you might think if I tell you, of course, I'm going to say it's the best, but what are third parties saying? So I looked at what other companies were using them, but what are third party pundits and the experts saying about them? And they were winning so many awards. Every year they continue to win more awards that list various forms of their software as being the best or among the best. And that's always impressive to me. So like Gartner, the Magic Quadrant, PC Mag, all these types of people that make their living, that their businesses are based on ranking and rating the quality of and reporting on the quality of other software and technological gadgets. They are reporting that Zoho is among the best and continually giving them awards. So that was another thing that really helped me to know, like, and trust them. Another thing that I really liked is that they are privately held. That is, they are not beholden to any VC or, they're not publicly traded. So they are not beholden to the whims and the desires of the shareholders, who may be all about like the stock price, driving up the price of the shares for the investors. Since it's privately held, they do what makes sense for their customers. And they've been many times approached to be bought out by some of the biggest players, and they're just not interested in selling. And so that made sense to me. I really liked that. That also spoke to why they could offer the value and nobody else could compete with that. As we get down to the last few things that I considered, one of them was support and resources. And I found that with Zoho, they have got a wealth of resources. So most software today is sold without, a whole training package to go along with it and that kind of stuff. It's supposed to be intuitive and very user-friendly, easy for you to, onboard your people with and get familiar with. That is sort of the way software and technologies become. And yet they have just tons of video and help articles and resource pages, webinars that they're constantly offering. I mean, almost any given day, there's multiple webinars for the various Zoho applications that you can sign up for. And you can go to their various YouTube channels and learn from that. All of their help documents, plus their support team operates around the clock, and you can get great support on any problems that you're running into. I've had them solve problems for me that is beyond what I would expect for support. And I think their support is, we as a partner of Zoho, we offer additional support on top of what the Zoho employed support team does. And so those that buy the software through our website will get all the Zoho support plus extra support from us. And just as we're winding down here, just a couple of more things that was impressive to me was their attitude towards security and data privatization, or keeping data privacy, I should say. They want to make sure that your data is never sold. So they really work hard, and they have a commitment that as they collect data, they use data in-house to improve their tools or whatever, but they never sell that. And they don't base anything on an advertising model. So even the free versions of their software, and they do offer many of there's free trial periods for a lot of their software, but there is free versions that people operate on. And most of the competition, it's not really free. What most of the competition is doing is they are collecting that data and they're using that to advertise to you, and you are the product. That's what they say, is when something is free, you are the product. Well, Zoho doesn't have that business model whatsoever. They make their revenues based on subscription fees. And so I really like the idea that your data is secure, it's safe, it's not going to be sold. And with that in mind, they've been doing over the last couple of years a lot more vertical integration. And what I mean by that is, first of all, they're very decentralized. They have a global presence. So no matter where you're listening to this in the world, you know, Zoho is operating in your country, I can assure you. And they have servers all over the world as well. So you're not relying on a server across the world. So the latency, the speed with which their servers are updated and your data is saved and all that stuff, that's extremely fast. But they're vertically integrating, where they're looking at and already creating their own in-house microchips and of course all their own software. But we think of the software companies, those big players out there, many of them are relying on other companies. There a social media company that was recently challenging for more conservative views. They were kicked off of a platform because of their views and the controversy. Kind of getting off on a tangent here, but I was just giving you one quick example of where you might think of a company as technology based, but maybe they subscribe, they're only in business because they are using Amazon Web Services. So they design their software, but they run it through Microsoft servers or something like that. Well, Zoho runs it through their own servers, and they're becoming more and more vertically integrated, so they're not relying on these third parties. And so again, they're not beholden to anyone. They're not at the mercy of anyone else. So that was another really important thing to me. You can tell that I'm passionate about this, and I could go on and rattle off a whole bunch of other reasons for this. If you're not convinced by now, I don't know what I have to do. Zoho is, bar none, it is the best software package, it's the best operating system for business. Click on the link in the description and we can set you up on that. The other thing, I'll record a separate video and explain to you what we can do to support you in terms of your Zoho, because we offer, when you buy your Zoho through us, we also throw in some extra support and customization. And I'll do a whole separate video on that because we've gone on long enough for this. I hope you got something out of this. Maybe you did invest 40, 45 minutes in this video, but that could save you. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours researching the various software. So I hope I've saved you a lot of time in being able to do that. Trust me on this one. You will be thankful that you did. And this business, or your business, will be operating that much smoother because of this software, and we'll help you with that. So let's leave it at that. Let's leave it there and leave some comments. If you have any questions about this, reach out to our team. You can also leave comments, and when you leave comments down below, the whole community can read your comments. Maybe you are already a Zoho One customer and you want to say what your experience is, good or bad. When you leave a comment, we all learn, and we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.